It's time for the Newsmaker Show on AM 1480 WLEA.
Good morning. This is Derek Belinsky filling in for Brian O'Neill on this Tuesday morning, this edition of the Newsmaker Show. Today we have two commissioners at the Steuben County Board of Elections, Vicki Olin and Kelly Penzul. Vicki is the Republican Commissioner of the Steuben County Board of Elections. Good morning, Vicki. How's it going today?
Good morning. It's going good.
So with the big election going on as we speak this morning, what can you tell us about the New York Republican ballot?
Well, there's 4 candidates on the ballot. The voters they can make one choice. So it's really pretty simple.
How many delegates are at stake in today's primary, I guess, on the Republican side?
Well, there's no delegates on the ballot for the Republicans. There's only delegates on the ballot for the Democrats.
Gotcha. And voting has already started. It started at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock this morning?
Our polls don't open until noon.
Okay.
They're open from noon until 9 p.m.
Noon until 9. And in terms of locations?
All of the normal poll sites are open today. So wherever they normally go to vote during a general election is where they would go and vote today. But only those that are registered Democrat or Republican can vote in today's primary.
Okay, and you had to already be registered, correct?
Yes.
And are there any area or local races that voters will be casting a ballot for today?
Not today. Today's strictly a presidential primary.
Okay. Something interesting I saw in my reading online, there was an article, Trump's children are not able to vote in today's primary based on the fact that they did not register on time. That was kind of interesting. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it happens. People sometimes don't realize that they're not registered or where they're registered, and sometimes they're not even sure what party they're registered as. And so, it's always interesting. We get a lot of phone calls about people. People think sometimes that they registered when they signed up for their driver's license or when they turned 18 that they were automatically registered, and unfortunately that's not the case. So what we really recommend is if anybody questions whether they're registered, where they're registered, what party they might be, or where they're to go to vote, we really recommend that they give the office a call, and the staff will be more than glad to look them up and help them out with any information that they can.
I also noticed that there's a very helpful website. It is SteubenCony.org.
Yes. We have information on there. Right now, a lot of it's based strictly for the presidential primary. It gives the date and the times, and that you have to be a registered Democrat or Republican. But there is also a link on there that they can go to and actually look up their own voter registration with their name and date of birth and zip code in Steuben County and see whether or not they're registered here.
Now, also in my voting experience, I know there's such a thing as an absentee ballot. What can you tell me about that, I guess?
Absentee ballots would have already had to have been done by today. People who are permanently disabled, a caregiver for somebody who is permanently disabled, somebody who is temporarily disabled, let's say they end up in the hospital or, they're temporarily laid up, or somebody giving care for someone who's temporarily laid up can get an absentee ballot application and an absentee ballot if they qualify. Also, those that are going to be out of the county on election day can apply for an absentee ballot for that election. We have a lot of college students that do absentee because they're off to college and not here in Steuben County where they would normally vote.
Again, we're talking with Vicki Olin this morning, the Republican Commissioner of the Steuben County Board of Elections. Vicki, me being a sports kind of guy, we're into predictions and stuff. Is that in your nature? What can you tell us about your expectations for today's primary?
We're expecting a very large turnout today due to the voter registrations that we've received. The amount of phone calls that we have received, we're really, and what's happened across the United States so far, we're really expecting a large turnout, and Kelly and I have planned for the worst, and we're praying for the best for today, and we're really hoping that people will be patient today. They may have to wait in line a little bit longer than they normally would have to wait. So just, please be patient and let our inspectors do their job, so that everybody gets a chance to vote that should be able to vote today, and hopefully it'll be a really good day. We're interested in seeing what the turnout ends up like tonight when we're all done.
Vicki, you mentioned that large turnout. What do you attribute that to? And I'm excited and to see more younger type voters, I would guess, coming out to the polls today.
I think part of it has to do with, this year has been very different than any presidential primary we've really ever had. Trump is definitely, excited people. I think partially because he's a name that people recognize and know, but he's definitely got people interested, whether it's because they're for him or against him. And, I think anytime we can get people interested in the elections and their rights to vote, I think it's a good thing. And this time, normally by now, the New York State really isn't in play for a normal presidential primary. Normally by now, everything has pretty much already been decided, and the delegates have already, been gotten that need to get. And so this is kind of a little out of the ordinary that New York State is really still in play when it comes to deciding who the presidential president's going to be. So I think it's interesting that people really feel that they have a choice this time around, and they have a say, and that they are coming out to vote, to be heard.
Now, for some of us that may not know out there, what are your duties as the Republican Commissioner of the Steuben County Board of Elections? What types of things do you have to do? What are your daily activities, I guess, so to speak?
Well, we have a small staff. We do voter registration, from everything from updating people's address and getting them to make sure they go to the right poll site to vote, taking those that have unfortunately deceased off the record, so we don't have, as a lot of people like to claim, dead people voting. We deal with all of our poll sites. We have 54 poll sites in Steuben County, and so we're in constant contact with them about what's coming up, when we're going to need to use their facility, when machines are going to be delivered and picked up, getting trucks to make sure we can deliver and pick up our machines, and the employees to do so. We also have to maintain our equipment and test deck all of the machines before they go out for Election Day. We have a staff that comes in to help us do that. We have an audit process after the election. It's a lot of coordinating and maintaining and training all of our inspectors. We have to have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans in every district, and we have 85 districts, so that's a lot of inspectors. And unfortunately for this presidential primary, a lot of our inspectors are still down south and haven't come back home yet, and so that left us a little short, and we just have to make sure we can, get all of our inspectors where they need to be so that they can cover the poll site. We do a lot of behind the scenes. We also do visitations to the schools and talk to the seniors and the juniors about voting and the importance and getting them registered to vote. There's a lot of things behind the scene that people normally wouldn't think about that we do on a regular daily basis in here.
We already discussed Donald Trump's children not being able to vote. because they weren't registered on time. Is it true that some voters did not register on time when switching parties?
Yes, we've had a real problem this year because people weren't really interested in what was going on until probably about January, February, when people really started getting interested in wanting to make sure that they could vote for that candidate and that party. Unfortunately, New York State only allows party changes once a year. And in order for a party change to be effective for 2016 elections, they actually would have had to have happened by October 9th of 2015. So anybody that sent us in a party change that was already a registered voter, their party change is not going to take effect until 7 days after the 2016 general election. But all of those voters received a letter in the mail telling them that their party change would not happen until after this year's general election. Some people don't understand that, and it's understandable. They kind of get caught up in the, didn't really want to change their party until they knew kind of where they wanted to stand, and unfortunately by that point it was too late.
Again, speaking with Vicki Olin on this first segment of the Newsmaker show this morning. Vicki, is there anything else that voters should know as they head out to the polls today?
Well, just, be patient. If you are questioning, what your party is, your party affiliation, or where you go to vote, we have a lot of people that move around and they don't always notify us. And it's really important if they've moved that they need to go to the correct poll site for their new address. And they can call the office and the staff can look up their address and let them know where the correct poll site is for them to go and vote. And that's really important in order for us to make sure that their vote counts. It's much easier to call the office and talk to the staff here than it is to go to the poll site and try to figure it out when we have a lot of people in line waiting to vote. And like I said, just, hopefully everybody will be patient at the poll site and be patient with the inspectors and be courteous, and that we'll have a really good day.
Vicki, thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Joining us now for segment 2 of the Newsmaker show is Kelly Pensul, the Democratic Commissioner of the Steuben County Board of Elections. Good morning, Kelly. How's it going today?
Good morning. It's going real well.
We covered a lot with Vicki there in part 1. What do you have to add in terms of today's New York State primary?
It's hard to say. Sitting here, she pretty much covered everything I was thinking of. Just like she said, be patient at the poll sites. I mean, we do have a lot of new inspectors out working that we just trained a few weeks ago, so they're kind of new at the scene and they're learning. We're just breaking them in slowly, and hopefully it'll be an easy day for them.
Vicki did discuss this, but how many New York State Democratic ballots are at stake in today's primary?
New York Democratic. What do you mean the ballots? There's only one ballot.
In terms of how many delegates would be available?
There's actually 5 delegates for each presidential candidate, but you can choose any 5 in that column as you're going across. So you got, I think Bernie's on top as far as presidential candidate, and then there's the delegates in the same row as him. And they basically, from what I understand, they kind of are backing Bernie. And then the Hillary line, she has 5 delegates as well. But you can vote up to 5, but it doesn't have to be that straight line. You can vote for whoever you want.
And I'm assuming on the Democratic side there are no area or local races going on.
None of that will happen until probably September if we have anything local going on as far as primaries.
And kind of missed a trick there, but going back a little bit, in terms of, Vicki discussed her responsibilities. Would your responsibilities as the Democratic Commissioner be the same as hers?
Yes, we work together. we train inspectors. She takes a few of the classes, I take a few. Sometimes we share them depending on if it's a new class to make sure we cover everything. Like she said, we go visit the poll sites, make sure everything's running smoothly. On that note, at the poll sites, this time around, when people go to vote, when they get there, it's really not going to be broken up by what district they're in. It's going to be broken up by what party they're in. So when they go into the poll site, there'll be a Democratic table, there'll be a Republican table. They would just go to the table that they are the party of to sign in and get their ballot.
Now, with you being a Democrat and her being a Republican, is it kind of hard to keep you two in the same room? Do you guys tease each other back and forth or anything of that nature?
On occasion we tease, but we get along great here. I mean, we try to keep the politics out of the office because we're here to do a job and we're here to get the elections going. So we work pretty well together. I mean, the whole team in the office does.
And looking at today's primary, which opens, I guess, in about an hour, or actually 3 hours, maybe a little over 3 hours at noon, she said.
Yep.
Any predictions, any forecasts for what to expect today?
I'm just really hoping for a smooth day, that everything runs smoothly, and like Vicki said, people are patient, because I'm guessing there's probably going to be lines as well. I got to believe we're going to have a pretty good turnout. I mean, considering all the registrations that we have gotten in the phone calls and the questions and stuff, that people are really interested in getting out there.
And as we had discussed earlier, did you notice on the Democratic side that it was true that some voters weren't able to register on time because they wanted to switch parties?
Yes. A lot of people don't understand the law, New York State election law, and when the party changes can happen. And when a lot of people, majority of the time, we notice during regular primaries, not a lot of people go out to vote. And so they don't understand that in a primary, you have to be of the party that primary is in. So when you go to vote in the general, obviously you can vote any party line you want in the general. So if people are consistently voting a certain party line in the general, sometimes they forget to remember what party they really are. And they'll call and say, well, I voted, Republican forever, and come to find out they're not registered Republican. And it gets confusing for voters. So they really just have to understand the laws and really kind of question what party they are and call the office. I mean, we have close to 42,000 registered voters, Republican voters, and Democrat voters. So we're figuring a big turnout.
Again, speaking with Kelly Penzl, the Democratic Commissioner of the Steuben County Board of Elections this morning on the Newsmaker show. Kelly, is there anything else voters should know as they head out to the polls this afternoon?
I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I pretty much think we covered everything.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Vicki, for joining us this afternoon. I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
And that's the Newsmaker show on WLEA 1480 AM. Brian Kilmeade is next.